5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of Off the Front Podcast. In today's episode, it's just me. I don't have any guests lined up. I just wanted to take a few minutes to start the whole thing off by telling you a little bit about me and a little bit about what Off the Front cycling is about. So I was born in the early 80s and grew up in a household where I knew about cycling. I lived in Tennessee. My dad was into cycling. And so it was a little bit of an unusual situation because, really at the time in the United States, cycling was not a sport that many people cared about. Greg LeMond came along, and so that generated some interest. But I think I was lucky to have a dad that was into cycling and honestly made sure that my brother and I always had nice bikes. So I grew up aware of the sport. But then, like most teenagers, I got away from it when I could start driving and forgot all about bikes. But just as I was graduating from college, I got a new bike and started riding again. And so for the past almost 2 decades, cycling and fitness has become something that I'm deeply passionate about. Now, I know that if you go to iTunes or Spotify and search for cycling podcast, you will notice there are plenty out there. And so I was hesitant at first to start a cycling podcast or a fitness podcast because there's a ton of those too. But recently I turned 40 years old, and I really had to answer the question for myself about where I would go from here. In cycling, of course, anybody that trains with a power meter knows that your numbers tend to go down. You don't usually get stronger at 40. So I had to decide whether I was going to accept that my best days were behind me, or if I was going to continue to try to find ways to improve and to find better performance at 40 and beyond. So of course, this is why I'm here now doing Off the Front Podcast, where we are pursuing speed, strength, and balance at 40 and beyond. I think those 3 pillars speak for themselves. Anyone that's ever touched a bike or put on running shoes wants to go faster. And that doesn't change when you turn 40, or at least it hasn't with me. As far as strength goes, we all need to be stronger in order to get better in our sport, but also to be more useful and productive in life, and to be more durable against injury. Over the past year, I was really focused on my cycling training, and it got to the point where I felt like I was one move away from getting injured. I was fast on the bike. I was strong. My numbers looked good. But I wasn't very useful around the house. When we were decorating our house for Christmas, I have to ask for help to carry the Christmas ornaments upstairs because I'm just trying to hold it together. And so I think that developing strength is important, especially for the masters-aged athlete. For me, over the past several months, I've started incorporating strength workouts into my training regimen, and it's been instrumental in making me feel stronger and better on the bike, but also more useful just around the house. And then the third pillar I mentioned is balance, which is admittedly something I've never been good at. When I touch the bike, I want to be the best bike racer. When I touch a weight, I want to be the strongest weightlifter. And so balance has always been something I've actually had a hard time achieving. I feel like I'm probably not in that boat alone. And so hopefully by talking about this here, it'll help myself focus on achieving better balance, but also help you, the listener, focus on or finding that balance too. Definitely as an older athlete, I think it's more important for us to focus on the strength training, the core conditioning, the nutrition, and all of the aspects that you could get away with at a younger age, just brushing off and not paying attention. I know when I was in my late 20s and younger 30s, I would hear older people talk about core routines, and strength workouts, and I would sort of roll my eyes because I didn't need that. I just needed to get on the bike more. But again, I think finding that balance is a key part to continuing to make improvements as an older athlete. I hope that the podcast format is something that you guys will find useful and practical and something that you can find a way to consume. I've been a podcast fan for at least a decade. They've always been convenient. I can listen to a podcast while I'm riding, while I'm mowing the lawn, while I'm doing dishes, although my wife would argue that that rarely happens, which is probably true. But I've chosen to go the podcast route because of the ease of sneaking it in your daily life, and also for the value that they can bring to you as an athlete. The long-form communication, the in-depth interviews are perfect for podcasts, and I'm hoping to have some really informative guests on the show. I do have some great guests lined up, some national champions, some masters-aged athletes that are quite accomplished. I have some coaches that will be on to talk, both strength athletes and endurance athletes, doctors. I think that this podcast can provide to myself and you, the listener, with important information on how to continue improving in your 40s and 50s. And so that's it for today. Like I said, I just wanted to put this out there just to try to tell you what this is all about. If you like what we're doing, check us out on Instagram. It's at Off the Front Cycling, and the podcast is at Off the Front Podcast. I'm also on TikTok at Off the Front Cycling, which as a 40-year-old is not something I thought I would ever be saying, but here I am. So let's do this together. I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to making my 40s my best decade yet. All right, let's go.